Vexhara's 4 eyes moved quickly across the data screens. The blue glow from the monitors made her pale skin look even more ghostly than usual. She had been working in the Galactic Council archives for over 20 cycles, and she thought she had seen everything. Today proved her wrong. The salvage crews had brought in another derelict ship last week. This one was different. The metal was strange, and the design made no sense to any of the engineers. Most ships in the galaxy followed similar patterns, but this one looked like someone had welded scrap metal together and somehow made it fly through space. Another human vessel, she whispered to herself. The humans were one of the great mysteries of the galaxy. Everyone knew they had existed once, but no one knew much about them. They had vanished before most current civilizations had even developed space travel. All that remained were broken ships floating in dead space and fragments of their language in old trade records. Vexhara pulled up the data files from the ship's computer core. Most of it was corrupted, but her species, the Alterians, were known for their patience and skill with ancient technology. She had spent 3 days just getting the basic systems to respond. The first files were boring. Navigation logs, supply inventories, personal messages between crew members, standard stuff that every species kept on their ships. But then she found something that made her head tentacles curl with confusion. Combat footage. Hours and hours of it. Vexhara had seen combat footage before. Every species had conflicts and military records were common in the archives, but this was different. The quality was strange, like it had been recorded with primitive equipment. The humans in the footage moved in ways that seemed wrong. She opened the first file. The timestamp showed it was from something called Earth Year 2089. A group of humans in bulky armor were moving through what looked like a destroyed city. Explosions went off around them, but they kept moving forward. One of them, whose name tag read Kim D, took what should have been a fatal hit from an energy weapon, but just stumbled and kept fighting. Vexhara rewound the footage. She watched it again. Then a third time. The energy blast had hit Kim directly in the chest. His armor showed scorch marks, and she could see him grunt in pain, but he did not fall down. He did not even slow down. Instead, he turned and fired, back at his attacker with what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon. This was impossible. Energy weapons of that type should have killed any known species instantly. Even her own people, who were considered quite hardy, would have been knocked unconscious at minimum. She opened another file. This one showed a human female with Park M on her uniform. She was leading a squad through what the data labeled as a radioactive zone. The radiation readings shown in the corner of the footage were high enough to kill most galactic species within minutes. Park and her team spent 6 hours in that environment, completing some kind of mission. Vexhara checked the radiation readings 3 times. The numbers were right. This should have been impossible. File after file showed the same pattern. Humans surviving things that should have killed them. Fighting in environments that should have been uninhabitable. Moving with speed and precision that seemed to break the laws of biology. She found footage from something called the Battle of Europa Station. A human named Cho was shown fighting in the vacuum of space after his suit was damaged. The environmental readings showed his suit had lost pressure completely. He should have died in seconds. Instead, he held his breath and continued fighting for almost 2 minutes before his team could get him to safety. 2 minutes in vacuum, without a suit. Vexhara's hands shook as she opened more files. Every single piece of footage showed humans, doing impossible things. They fought in gravity wells that should have crushed them. They survived temperature extremes that should have frozen or cooked them. They kept fighting with injuries that should have left them unconscious. But the strangest part was not what the humans could survive, it was what they were fighting for. The mission reports that came with the footage made no sense. Humans were fighting massive wars over things like fresh water and arable land and fossil fuels. Vexhara had to look up what these terms meant. Fresh water was just hydrogen and oxygen. Every civilized species could make that with basics, chemistry. Arable land was just dirt that could grow plants. Most species used hydroponic systems. Fossil fuels were ancient organic matter that could be converted to energy. Any species that had discovered space travel had moved far beyond such primitive energy sources. Why would any intelligent species fight wars over such basic resources? It was like fighting wars over rocks or air. Unless, Vexhara felt a chill run through her body. She pulled up the planetary data from the human files. The planet they called Earth was listed as their homeworld. She ran the environmental readings through the archive's analysis system. The results made her stumble backward from her workstation. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. The gravity was triple what most species could handle. The atmosphere was filled with a highly reactive gas that was toxic to most life forms. The weather systems were violent and unpredictable. Massive storms could cover entire continents. The planet was regularly hit by radiation from its star that would sterilize most worlds. But the humans called it home. They had not just survived on this death world. They had thrived. They had built a civilization. And when they ran out of resources on their impossible planet, they had fought wars to get more. Vexhara sat in her chair, staring at the data. Everything made sense now. The humans were not fighting over valuable resources. They were fighting over the basic necessities of life on a planet that actively tried to kill everything living on it. No wonder they could survive energy blasts and radiation and vacuum. They had evolved on a world where such things were probably common occurrences. She opened one last file. The footage showed a massive battle on Earth's surface. Thousands of humans fighting with weapons that should have destroyed the planet's surface. The description called it World War VII, the seventh global war on their homeworld. Vexhara counted the human casualties listed in the after-action reports. The numbers were staggering. Millions of humans had died in this single conflict, but the footage showed that even more millions had survived things that should have killed them multiple times over. She leaned back in her chair and tried to process what she had discovered. For decades, the galactic community had assumed the humans were just another extinct species, probably wiped out by war or plague or environmental collapse like so many others. But what if they were wrong? What if the humans had not gone extinct? What if they were still out there, on their death world, fighting their impossible wars and surviving things that would kill anyone else? Vexhara looked at the star charts showing human space. It was marked as a quarantine zone. No ships were allowed to enter. The official records said it was because of environmental hazards and unstable stellar phenomena. What if the real reason was different? What if someone long ago had met the humans and decided that the galaxy was not ready for a species that treated death worlds as home? She saved all the files to her personal archive and encrypted them with her best security protocols. Tomorrow, she would have to decide what to do with this information. The Galactic Council would want to know about this discovery. But tonight, she would keep watching the footage of the impossible warriors from the death world called Earth, trying to understand how any species could be so hard to kill. In the footage, a human named Lee was shown surviving an explosion that should have vaporized him. He stood up, checked his weapon, and kept fighting. Vexhara shivered and wondered what else the humans might be capable of. Krelmoth did not look impressed when Vexhara showed him the footage. The military analyst folded his 6 arms across his chest and made the clicking sound that his species used to show doubt. "This has to be fake," Krelmoth said. Watching AI, human soldier named Gina Lee dragged 2 wounded teammates to safety while under heavy fire. "No species could move that fast under combat stress. Look at those reaction times. She is dodging projectiles that are moving faster than sound," Vexhara had expected this reaction. Krelmoth was one of the best military minds in the galaxy, but he was also very practical. If something seemed impossible, he usually assumed it was fake rather than impossible. "I thought the same thing," Vexhara replied. "But I have run every test I can think of. The footage is real. The timestamps match with historical records. The technology shown is consistent with what we know about human development levels." Krelmoth rewound the footage to watch Gina Lee again. The human woman was carrying 2 soldiers who appeared to weigh as much as she did. She was running across open ground while explosions went off around her. Energy blasts and projectiles filled the air, but somehow none of them hit her. "Look at this," Krelmoth said, pointing at the screen. "She moves left exactly when that energy blast fires. She jumps right before that projectile reaches her position. Either she can predict the future, or this is very good computer animation." Vexhara opened another file. "Watch this one. The human is named Hyun Choi." The footage showed a human in a spacesuit working on the outside of a ship. Suddenly, an explosion tore a hole in the ship's hull. The blast threw Choi away from the ship and tore his suit open. According to the environmental readings, he was now floating in vacuum with no protection. Most species would have died instantly. The vacuum would have boiled their blood and collapsed their lungs. But Choi did something that made both Vexhara and Krellmoth stare in shock. He held his breath. For 3 minutes and 17 seconds, Choi floated in hard vacuum while his damaged suit vented atmosphere. He stayed conscious and alert. When a rescue ship finally reached him, he was still moving purposefully, using his suit's emergency thrusters to maneuver toward the rescue vehicle. "That is not possible," Krellmoth whispered. "Vacuum exposure kills anyone in 30 seconds. We have tested this. It is basic biology." "Human biology might be different," Vexhara suggested. Krellmoth pulled up the biological data from the human files. His clicking sounds got louder as he read through the information. "Look at this," he said. "Their blood carries oxygen using iron-based molecules. Iron, that is a heavy metal. Most species use copper or lighter elements. And look at their bone density. It is 3 times higher than galactic average. Their muscle fibers are designed for high-gravity environments. They have redundant organs." "Redundant organs?" 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, sometimes 2 hearts. Their brain has multiple backup systems. Even their skin is different. Look at this analysis. Human skin is tough enough to stop small projectiles." Vexhara opened more files. The footage showed human after human surviving things that should have been fatal. A soldier named Sora Nam took a direct hit from an energy weapon that should have vaporized her. Instead, she was thrown backward and knocked unconscious for a few minutes. When she woke up, she picked up her weapon and continued fighting. "I need to see the planet data," Krellmoth said. Vexhara shared the environmental readings from Earth. Krellmoth's clicking sound stopped completely. His species only went silent when they were truly shocked. "This planet is uninhabitable," he said finally. "The gravity would crush most species. The atmosphere is poisonous. The radiation levels would cause cancer in most life forms. The weather patterns are violent enough to destroy cities. How did anything evolve there?" "They did not just evolve there," Vexhara said. "They built a civilization. Look at these population numbers. Billions of them lived on this death world." Krellmoth studied the combat footage with new eyes. The humans were not just tough. They were impossibly tough. But if they had evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill them, it started to make sense. "Look at this battle," he said, opening a file that showed urban combat. "The humans are fighting in a city that has been bombed repeatedly. The background radiation should kill them in hours. The air is full of toxic chemicals. The buildings are collapsing around them. But they just keep fighting." The human in the footage was named Junho Shin. He was leading a squad through streets filled with rubble and burning vehicles. Explosions went off constantly, but the humans moved through the chaos like it was normal. When part of a building collapsed and blocked their path, they just climbed over the rubble and kept going. "And look at this," Vexhara added, opening another file. Night combat. The footage showed humans fighting in complete darkness. Their equipment had been damaged, and they had no artificial light sources. But they moved through the darkness like they could see perfectly. A female soldier named Yuna Ko was shown making accurate shots at targets that Krellmoth could barely see, even with the camera's light enhancement. "How are they seeing in the dark?" Krellmoth asked. "I checked the biological data," Vexhara replied. "Human eyes are designed for low-light conditions. Their planet has long periods of darkness, so they evolved to function without much light." Krellmoth was quiet for a long time, watching footage of humans doing impossible things. Finally, he spoke. "These are not normal soldiers," he said. "Look at their tactics. They do not retreat when they should. They do not surrender when they are outnumbered. They fight until they win or until they die." The footage showed this over and over. Humans in hopeless situations who kept fighting anyway. Wounded soldiers who continued to fight long after their injuries should have stopped them. Units that were completely outnumbered but somehow found ways to win. "There is something else," Vexhara said. She opened a file that made both of them go silent. The footage showed 2 groups of humans fighting each other. "They fight wars against their own species," Vexhara said. "These are not training exercises. These are real battles where humans kill other humans." Krellmoth studied the footage carefully. The humans were using their full capabilities against each other. The same speed, strength, and resilience that they showed against alien threats, they used in conflicts with other humans. "Look at the casualty numbers," he said, reading the battle reports. "Millions of them died in some of these wars. But look at the survival rates for the wounded. Even humans who should have died from their injuries had high survival rates. Because they are too tough to kill easily," Vexhara said. Krelmoth leaned back in his chair. "If this footage is real, then we have a serious problem." "What do you mean?" "The humans in this footage are using primitive weapons, chemical explosives, projectile weapons, basic energy weapons. This footage is hundreds of years old, according to the timestamps. What do you think their weapons look like now?" Vexhara felt cold. She had been so focused on what the humans could survive that she had not thought about what they might have built since then. "There is something else," Krelmoth said. "I have been checking the database for references to species like this. Tough, aggressive, hard to kill. There are some very old records that mention something called Iron Bloods." Iron Bloods. Mythical warriors from ancient stories. Species so tough that they could survive in space without protection. So aggressive that they fought wars for fun. So dangerous that other species would abandon entire star systems rather than fight them. Vexhara and Krelmoth looked at each other. "You think the humans are the Iron Bloods?" Vexhara asked. "I think we need to find out," Krelmoth replied. "And I think we need to find out what happened to them. If they are still alive, the galaxy needs to know about it." On the screen, a human named Daeho Yoon was shown leading a night assault against overwhelming odds. His unit was outnumbered 10-1, but they won anyway. Krelmoth turned off the screen. "We need to take this to the council, but first we need more evidence. If the humans really are the Iron Bloods from the old stories, then this is not just a historical discovery. This could change everything." The Forbidden Archives were deep below the main council building. Vexhara had never been this far down before. The halls were older here, built by species that had vanished long before the current galactic civilization existed. Strange symbols covered the walls, and the air tasted of age and secrets. Krelmoth walked beside her, his military clearance allowing them access to restricted historical records. Neither of them spoke. What they had discovered in the human combat footage was too important for casual conversation. The archive keeper who met them was ancient, even by the standards of her long-lived species. Her name was unpronounceable in most languages, so everyone just called her Elder. She had been working in the Forbidden Archives for longer than some civilizations had existed. "You want to know about the Iron Bloods," Elder said. It was not a question. Her species could read thoughts at close range. "We have found evidence that they might have been real," Vexhara said carefully. Elder made a sound that might have been laughter. "Might have been real? Child, the Iron Bloods were the reason these archives were built. Come, let me show you what your people have chosen to forget." She led them deeper into the archives, past shelves filled with data crystals and memory cores from dead civilizations. The air got colder as they walked, and Vexhara could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. "The Iron Bloods were not myth," Elder said as they walked. "They were the reason the First Galactic Council was formed. Not to explore space, or share knowledge or promote peace. The Council was formed because entire species were fleeing to the far edge of the galaxy to escape them." Elder stopped at a massive vault door covered in warning symbols from dozens of different languages. She pressed her hand against a scanner, and the door slowly opened. "This is everything we know about them," she said. "Everything we were too afraid to forget, but too afraid to remember." The chamber beyond was filled with data storage devices, unlike anything Vexhara had seen before. Some were crystal matrices from the ancients. Others were quantum storage units from species that had mastered time itself. All of them hummed with stored information. Elder approached one of the crystal matrices and activated it. Holographic displays filled the chamber, showing star charts and battle reports and historical records from civilizations that had been dust for millennia. "The Iron Bloods came from a world at the edge of the galaxy," Elder said. "A world so hostile that most species classified it as uninhabitable. But they did not just survive there. They conquered it. And when they finished conquering their own world, they looked to the stars. The holographic displays showed star charts marking the expansion of something labeled as Iron Blood territory. The expansion was fast, covering entire star systems, in what appeared to be just a few decades. They were not interested in conquest for its own sake, Elder continued. They were looking for challenges. Their own world had made them so tough that nothing else could threaten them. So they went looking for things that could. Vexhara studied the records. The Iron Bloods had fought against species that had weapons capable of destroying planets. They had battled creatures that lived in the vacuum of space. They had gone to war with entities that existed in multiple dimensions at once. And they had won. How is that possible? Krellmoth asked. Elder activated another crystal matrix. This one showed biological data and combat analysis from ancient military records. The Iron Bloods were not just tough, she said. They were adaptable. Every challenge made them stronger. Every enemy taught them new ways to fight. They learned from everything they encountered and became better warriors because of it. The displays showed Iron Blood warriors fighting in environments that should have been impossible. Deep space, the surface of stars, inside gas giants. They adapted their equipment and tactics to each new challenge. But the most terrifying thing about them was not their physical capabilities, Elder said. It was their mindset. They did not fight to win territory or resources or power. They fought because they enjoyed it. War was not just something they were good at. It was something they loved. Vexhara felt sick. The idea of a species that fought wars for entertainment was horrible. The galaxy tried to appease them, Elder continued. Civilizations offered them anything they wanted. Technology, resources, entire star systems. But the Iron Bloods were not interested in gifts. They wanted worthy opponents. The historical records showed the chaos that followed. Entire species abandoned their homeworlds rather than face the Iron Bloods in battle. Advanced civilizations collapsed as their populations fled to the far edges of the galaxy. Trade networks broke down as shipping lanes became war zones. The galaxy was dying, Elder said, not because the Iron Bloods were destroying it, but because everyone was running away from them. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years were abandoning everything they had built. Krellmoth was studying a battle report from something called the Siege of Nexus Prime. The Iron Bloods had fought against the combined fleets of 17 different species. The battle had lasted for 3 years. The Iron Bloods had won. What happened to them? He asked. Elder activated a final set of displays. These showed something different. Star charts that marked the gradual withdrawal of Iron Blood forces. Battle. Reports that showed them fighting each other instead of alien species. Records that tracked their return to their home system. They got bored, Elder said simply. Bored? They had conquered everything worth conquering. They had fought every worthy opponent in the galaxy, so they went home and started fighting each other. The displays showed massive civil wars among the Iron Bloods, conflicts that made their previous battles look small. They fought with weapons that could crack planets and tactics that turned entire star systems into battlefields. The galaxy watched and waited, Elder said. Everyone expected the Iron Bloods to destroy themselves in their civil wars, but they did not die. They just stopped coming out of their home system. Vexhara looked at the star charts. The Iron Blood home system was marked as a quarantine zone, the same designation that was used for human space in the modern star charts. Elder, she said carefully. What did the Iron Bloods call themselves? The ancient being looked at her with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. They had many names for themselves, but the most common one, translated into Standard Galactic, was humans. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the ancient data storage devices. The humans are the Iron Bloods, Krellmoth said. It was not a question. The humans are the Iron Bloods, Elder confirmed. And if you have found evidence that they are still active, then the galaxy has a very serious problem. Vexhara thought about the combat footage she had discovered. Humans fighting wars against each other with primitive weapons, surviving impossible conditions, showing the same adaptability and resilience that the ancient records described. The footage we found, she said. It shows them fighting each other. Civil wars on their homeworld. Elder nodded. That matches the historical pattern. When the Iron Bloods ran out of external enemies, they turned their warrior instincts against each other. The question is, what happens when they get tired of fighting themselves? Krellmoth was studying the ancient tactical analyses. According to these records, the Iron Bloods were never truly defeated. They just chose to isolate themselves. If they ever decide to leave their home system again, the galaxy would not survive. Elder finished. Current civilizations are softer than the ancient ones. We have lived in peace for too long. We have forgotten how to fight wars against species like the Iron Bloods. Vexhara looked at the star charts showing human space. But they have been quiet for centuries. Maybe they have changed. Maybe they are not the same as their ancestors. Elder made that sound that might have been laughter again. Child, look at your combat footage. Do those humans look like they have become peaceful farmers? She was right. The humans in the footage showed the same fighting spirit and resilience that the ancient records described. If anything, their long isolation had made them even tougher. What do we do? Krellmoth asked. Elder began shutting down the holographic displays. That is not my decision to make. But I will tell you this. The galaxy is not ready for the return of the Iron Bloods. If they ever decide to leave their home system, everything will change. As they walked back through the ancient halls, Vexhara thought about the implications of what they had learned. The humans were not just another extinct species. They were the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had ever known. And according to her combat footage, they were still out there, still fighting, still growing stronger. The question was, what would happen when they got tired of fighting each other and started looking to the stars again? The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called for the first time in over 50 years. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a buzz of confusion and concern. No one knew why they had been summoned so urgently. Vexhara stood at the speaker's platform, trying to control her nerves. Beside her, Krellmoth had prepared detailed military analyses of the human combat footage. Elder had agreed to serve as a historical consultant, though she had warned them that the truth would not be welcome. Council Speaker Torvak called for order. His species was known for their diplomatic skills and calm demeanor, but even he seemed unsettled by the urgency of this gathering. Archive Keeper Vexhara has requested this emergency session to present findings of galactic importance, Torvak announced. The floor is yours. Vexhara activated the holographic displays. The chamber filled with images of human soldiers in combat. Immediately, the council chamber erupted in noise as representatives recognized what they were seeing. These are the Iron Bloods, she said, her voice carrying over the chaos. The humans are the Iron Bloods from our historical records, and they are still alive. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Representatives jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of different languages. Some demanded proof. Others called for immediate military action. A few began organizing evacuation plans for their home systems. Counselor Zeftar of the Hegemony stood first. His species had been among those that fled to the Galactic Rim during the ancient Iron Blood expansion. This is impossible, he declared. The Iron Bloods vanished centuries ago. They destroyed themselves in their civil wars. Everyone knows this. Krellmoth stepped forward. The evidence suggests otherwise. We have confirmed combat footage showing humans engaged in warfare on their homeworld as recently as 50 years ago. The biological and tactical analysis matches historical records of Iron Blood capabilities. He played footage of a human named Minji Jung fighting in zero gravity. She moved through a damaged space station with impossible grace, using the debris and twisted metal as cover while engaging multiple opponents. Her reaction time and spatial awareness in three-dimensional combat was beyond anything that current galactic species could achieve. Look at these movement patterns, Krellmoth said. She is fighting in zero gravity like she was born to it. Most species need years of training to function effectively in weightless environments. This human is using it as a tactical advantage. Counselor Ythara of the Commerce Federation stood next. Her species controlled most of the galaxy's trade networks, and she was known for practical thinking. Even if the humans are still alive, she said, they have remained in their quarantined system for centuries. They pose no threat to current galactic civilization. Elder activated another display. This one showed recent sensor readings from the edge of human space. 3 months ago, our monitoring stations detected unusual energy signatures from the human system, she said. The readings suggest advanced weapons testing, weapons far beyond what we see in the historical footage. The chamber fell silent. Advanced weapons testing meant the humans were not content to simply fight each other with primitive equipment. They were developing new ways to wage war. Counselor Drachmos of the Military Alliance spoke next. His species had served as the galaxy's primary defense force for decades. If the humans are developing advanced weapons, we need to know what kind, he said. I propose immediate long-range reconnaissance of their system. Several representatives shouted objections. Counselor Nexalan of the Peaceful Worlds Coalition stood to voice the concerns of the pacifist species. Any reconnaissance mission risks provoking them, she said. If the humans really are the Iron Bloods, then the last thing we want to do is remind them that the rest of the galaxy exists. Vexhara played more footage. This time it showed a human unit led by someone named Woobin Lee. His squad was outnumbered 20-1, but they used tactics that turned their enemies' numbers against them. They created kill zones, used psychological warfare, and coordinated their movements with precision that current military forces could not match. Look at their tactical flexibility, she said. They adapt their strategy constantly during the battle. Most species plan their tactics before combat and stick to the plan. The humans change their entire approach based on what happens moment by moment. Counselor Quindar of the Science Directorate was studying the biological data. His species had the most advanced medical knowledge in the galaxy. These physical capabilities are not possible, he said. The human named Rena Bay, shown in this footage, survives explosive decompression, radiation poisoning, and massive blood loss, all in the same battle. Our medical models say she should have died 3 times over. Unless their biology is more advanced than we understand, Krellmoth replied. The humans evolved on a death world. Their entire physiology is designed for survival in conditions that would kill other species. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives wanted to maintain the quarantine and pretend the humans did not exist. Others demanded immediate military preparation for a possible human expansion. A radical faction led by Counselor Vorthuk suggested preemptive strikes against human space. We should destroy them while they are still contained, Vorthuk declared. If we wait for them to develop interstellar travel again, it will be too late. Elder stood slowly. Her ancient presence commanded respect from even the most aggressive representatives. You cannot destroy the humans with current galactic weapons, she said quietly. The ancient records are clear on this point. Every species that tried to defeat the Iron Bloods through direct military action was destroyed. They do not just win battles. They learn from every attack and become stronger. Then what do you suggest? Torvak asked. Before Elder could answer, an aide rushed into the chamber and whispered urgently to Counselor Drachmos. The military leader's face changed color as he heard the message. I have just received a priority communication from our border monitoring stations, Drachmos announced. Long-range sensors have detected massive energy signatures moving toward the edge of human space. Whatever the humans have been building, they are preparing to use it. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives began calling for immediate evacuation of border systems. Others demanded that the military alliance begin mobilizing defense fleets. Counselor Nexalan raised her voice above the chaos. There is another option. What if we try to communicate with them? Communicate? Vorthuk snarled. With the Iron Bloods, they do not negotiate. They conquer. The historical records show that the humans withdrew voluntarily, Nexalan replied. They chose isolation over conquest. Maybe they can be reasoned with. Elder nodded slowly. The child has a point. The Iron Bloods were never interested in ruling the galaxy. They wanted worthy opponents and interesting challenges. If we approach them correctly, they might be willing to maintain their isolation. Krellmoth was studying tactical displays showing current galactic military capabilities. Our defense forces are not prepared for war against an opponent like the humans. If they decide to expand again, we would need months to organize any effective resistance. Months we might not have, Drachmos said grimly. If those energy signatures indicate what I think they do, the humans could have ships capable of interstellar travel within weeks. Torvak called for order, but the chamber remained chaotic. Centuries of peace had not prepared the galactic community for the possibility that their greatest nightmare might be awakening. Vexhara looked at the footage still playing on the displays. A human named Jihoon Han was shown leading a desperate defense against overwhelming odds. His forces were cut off and surrounded, but they fought with such determination that they eventually broke through enemy lines and completed their mission. That same determination and tactical brilliance was now pointed toward the stars, and the galaxy was not ready for what might happen next. "We need to make a decision," Torvac said finally. "Do we try to maintain the quarantine, attempt communication, or prepare for war?" The representatives looked at each other, knowing that whatever they decided would shape the future of galactic civilization. In the historical records, the Iron Bloods had changed everything just by existing. Now they might be about to do it again. 3 months after the emergency council session, the first contact mission launched toward human space. Despite heated debates and several near-violent arguments, the council had chosen communication over military action. The alternative was too frightening to consider. The mission consisted of a single diplomatic vessel, the Harmony's Voice, crewed by volunteers from species known for their peaceful intentions. Ambassador Ylthara of the Mediation Guild led the mission, chosen for her success in resolving conflicts between aggressive species. They approached the edge of human space slowly, broadcasting messages of peace in every language in the galactic database. The plan was simple: make contact with the outermost human settlement and establish diplomatic relations before the humans decided to expand beyond their current territory. "Sensors are detecting a structure ahead," reported Navigator Kexmol. "It appears to be some kind of research station." Ylthara felt relieved. A research station meant scientists, and scientists were usually more reasonable than soldiers. Maybe the humans had developed a peaceful civilization during their long isolation. "Open communication channels," she ordered. "Send our standard, first contact greeting." The response came faster than expected. A human voice, speaking clear galactic standard, replied immediately. "Unknown vessel. You are approaching a restricted military installation. State your purpose and prepare to be boarded for inspection." The bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. Military installation? The structure ahead looked like a simple research facility. "This is Ambassador Ylthara of the Galactic Council," she replied. "We come in peace seeking diplomatic contact with your species." There was a long pause. Then the human voice returned with what sounded like amusement. "Galactic Council, stand by. Someone wants to talk to you." A new voice came over the communication system. This one was different, carrying authority and intelligence that made Ylthara's diplomatic instincts pay attention. "Ambassador, this is Commander Jihoon Han of the Earth Defense Force. Permission to come aboard your vessel?" "Of course, Commander. We welcome the opportunity for face-to-face contact." 20 minutes later, a small craft approached the Harmony's Voice. It was sleek and fast, with design elements that the ship's computer could not identify. More concerning, the sensors detected energy signatures that suggested advanced weaponry built into the hull. Commander Han came aboard alone, which surprised the diplomatic team. Most species sent groups for first contact situations, but the human walked into the meeting room with the confident stride of someone who feared nothing. Ylthara's first impression was that the human looked ordinary. Jihoon Han was not particularly large or obviously dangerous. He wore a simple uniform and carried no visible weapons. If not for the combat footage she had studied, she might have assumed he was a scientist or bureaucrat. "Commander Han," she said, "this is a historic moment. The first peaceful contact between humanity and the galactic community in centuries." Han smiled, and something about that expression made Ylthara uncomfortable. It was not hostile, but it held knowledge that she did not understand. "Peaceful contact?" he said. "Ambassador, we have been monitoring galactic communications for over 50 years. We know about your council meetings. We know about your debates regarding what to do about the human problem. This is not first contact. This is you, finally, working up the courage to come talk to us." The diplomatic team stared in shock. The humans had been watching them? For 50 years? "You have been monitoring our communications?" Navigator Kexmol asked. "Of course," Han replied. Did you think we would stay isolated without keeping track of what our neighbors were doing? We have observation posts throughout this region of space. We know about your trade routes, your military movements, your political situations. Ylthara tried to process this information. The humans had sophisticated surveillance capabilities and had been watching galactic civilization without anyone knowing about it. Why did you not make contact before now? She asked. Han leaned back in his chair. Because we were not interested in joining your civilization. We watched you for 50 years and we saw how you handle conflicts. Committee meetings, diplomatic protests, economic sanctions. Very civilized. Very boring. Boring? Your species have forgotten how to fight real wars, Han said. You have lived in peace for so long that you have lost the skills your ancestors needed to survive. You solve problems through negotiation and compromise. We solve problems through superior firepower and tactical excellence. Dr. Sol Park, the mission's xenobiologist, spoke up. But surely peaceful solutions are preferable to warfare. Han looked at her with something that might have been pity. Doctor, your peaceful civilization exists because species like mine fought and died to create it. Peace is not the natural state of the universe. Peace is what you get when the strongest force around decides to let you have it. The implications of his words sank in slowly. The humans had not withdrawn from galactic affairs because they were defeated or exhausted. They had withdrawn because they found galactic civilization beneath their notice. What changed? Ylthara asked. Why are you willing to talk to us now? Han activated a holographic display that filled the meeting room. It showed star charts of the galactic rim with red markers indicating some kind of threat. Something is coming, he said simply. Our long-range sensors detect a massive fleet approaching from outside the galaxy. Unknown technology, hostile intent, and enough firepower to sterilize every inhabited world in Council space. The diplomatic team studied the display in growing horror. The approaching fleet was enormous, with ship designs unlike anything in the galactic database. How long until they arrive? Kexmol asked. 18 months, Han replied. Maybe less if they find a way to improve their faster-than-light travel. What do they want? The same thing most aggressive species want: resources, territory, and the elimination of potential threats. They appear to be a hive-mind collective that consumes everything in its path. Ylthara felt cold. Can the Galactic Defense Forces stop them? Han laughed, and the sound was not reassuring. Ambassador, your defense forces could not stop a single human battle group, let alone an extragalactic invasion fleet. Your weapons are designed for police actions against rebels and pirates. These invaders have weapons designed for planetary extinction. Then what do you suggest? An alliance, Han said. You provide us with formal recognition as an independent power and access to galactic resources. We provide you with the military, capability to survive what is coming. Dr. Park looked confused. But you said you have been monitoring us for 50 years. Why do you need our resources? Han smiled that unsettling smile again. Because, Doctor, what you call a research station is actually Forward Operating Base Taiyang, one of 47 similar installations we have built throughout this region of space. The meeting room fell silent as the implications became clear. You have been expanding into galactic space without anyone knowing, Ylthara said. We prefer the term strategic positioning, Han replied. We needed observation posts and supply depots in case we ever had to defend this region. The approaching threat proves that our planning was correct. Navigator Kexmol was studying the star charts. These base locations, they control all the major shipping lanes and strategic resources in this sector. Of course they do, Han said. We are very good at military planning. It is one of our natural talents. Colonel Taeyong Song entered the meeting room at that moment. Like Han, he moved with the easy confidence of someone who had never met a problem he could not solve through superior tactics and firepower. Commander, Song said, the demonstration is ready. Han nodded. Ambassador, would you like to see what human military technology looks like these days? Before anyone could object, the ship's sensors detected massive energy signatures throughout the region. Dozens of previously invisible installations revealed themselves, their advanced stealth systems deactivating simultaneously. The research station transformed before their eyes, unfolding weapon systems and defensive barriers that made it clear This was a fortress capable of holding off entire fleets. "This is what we built while you were debating whether we still existed," Han said, "and this is just one small part of our preparations." Ylthara realized that everything had changed. The humans had not been hiding in their home system. They had been quietly building the most advanced military network the galaxy had ever seen, and now they were offering to use it to save everyone else. "What are your terms?" she asked. "Simple," Han replied. "Full membership in the Galactic Council, with autonomous territory and the right to handle threats as we see fit. In exchange, we will make sure that the galaxy still exists when this invasion is over." Looking at the display showing the approaching threat, Ylthara realized they had no choice. The humans were no longer the unknown factor they had been worried about. They were the galaxy's only hope for survival. The invasion began 3 months earlier than the humans had predicted. The first systems to fall were on the galactic rim, where early warning stations simply vanished from all communication networks. By the time rescue fleets arrived, they found nothing but empty space and drifting debris. Admiral Hanil Shin stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Rising Sun, watching tactical displays that showed the extent of the disaster. In 2 weeks, the invaders had destroyed 17 star systems and were advancing toward the core worlds at an alarming pace. "Galactic Defense Command is requesting immediate assistance," reported Communications Officer Boram Kang. "Their fleets are retreating from all contact with the enemy." Hanel studied the battle reports with the calm efficiency that had made her one of humanity's finest military leaders. The invaders called themselves the Void Swarm, and they fought with tactics that the galactic forces could not counter. "Standard formation tactics," she observed. "The galactic fleets are trying to fight a conventional war against an enemy that does not follow conventional rules." General Kyung-oh appeared on the communication screen from the surface of New Terra, where human ground forces were preparing for planetary defense operations. "Admiral," he said, "we have confirmation that the Void Swarm uses biological ships. They can adapt their tactics and weapons during battle. Our allies do not know how to fight an enemy that evolves while they are shooting at it." Hanel nodded. This was exactly the kind of challenge that humans excelled at meeting. Adaptive enemies required adaptive tactics, and adaptability was what humans did best. "Have we received the Council's formal acceptance of our alliance terms?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral," Boram replied. "Full membership, autonomous territory, and complete tactical authority during the crisis. They are desperate enough to agree to anything." The bridge crew smiled grimly. The same council representatives who had debated whether humans should be exterminated were now begging for human protection. Captain Yerim Jang, commander of the human stealth fleet, appeared on another communication screen. "Admiral, our reconnaissance vessels have completed their analysis of Void Swarm capabilities. I have good news and bad news." "Bad news first," Hanel said. "Their ships are tougher than anything in the galactic database. They can regenerate damage, adapt to new weapons, and coordinate their actions through some kind of hive mind. A single Void Swarm vessel could probably destroy an entire galactic defense fleet. And the good news?" Yerim's smile was sharp and predatory. "They fight like machines. Perfect coordination, optimal tactics, and absolutely no imagination. They are exactly the kind of enemy we know how to beat." Hanil activated the tactical display that showed the current battle situation. The Void Swarm was advancing in perfect formation toward the galactic capital, destroying everything in their path with mechanical efficiency. "They expect us to fight like the other galactic species," she said. "Linear tactics, predictable strategies, and retreat when faced with superior firepower. Instead, we are going to give them something they have never encountered before." Commander Jaewon Yu, leader of the Human Special Operations Forces, joined the communication link from his position near the front lines. "Admiral, my teams are in position for Operation Iron Rain. We are ready to show the Void Swarm what happens when they mess with a species that considers warfare an art form." The plan was simple in concept, but devastating in execution. While the galactic fleets continued their conventional defensive actions, human forces would implement tactics that the Void Swarm could not predict or counter. "Begin the operation," Hanel ordered. Throughout the war zone, human forces moved into action with the precision of a species that had been preparing for this moment for centuries. They did not fight the way the Void Swarm expected. They did not even fight the way other galactic species expected. They fought like humans. The first surprise came when Captain Jang's stealth fleet appeared inside the Void Swarm formation. The invaders had adapted their sensors to detect galactic stealth technology, but human stealth systems worked on completely different principles. "Weapons free," Jang ordered. "Target their command vessels first." Human weapons fire lit up the darkness as the stealth fleet struck at the heart of the Void Swarm formation. The invaders' adaptive defenses tried to respond, but they had no data on human weapon systems. The second surprise came when General O's ground forces engaged Void Swarm landing parties on the surface of threatened worlds. The invaders expected conventional defensive positions and predictable tactics. Instead, they encountered human forces that used every environmental advantage and fought with a creativity that their hive mind could not process. "They keep trying to adapt to our tactics," O reported during the battle for Centauri Prime. "But every time they change their approach, we change ours faster. They cannot keep up with human tactical flexibility." The third surprise came when Commander Yu's special operations teams began hitting targets deep inside Void Swarm territory. They did not attack military installations or strategic resources. They attacked the things that the hive mind considered safe and unimportant. "We are disrupting their entire operational model," Yu reported. "They do not know how to respond to attacks against non-military targets that somehow cripple their military effectiveness." But the biggest surprise came when Admiral Shin implemented the final phase of the human strategy. Instead of defending every system, human forces abandoned most defensive positions and concentrated their entire fleet for a single massive assault. "All ships, this is Admiral Shin," she announced over the fleet communication network. "Today we show the galaxy why humans are the most dangerous species in known space. Target the Void Swarm Central Command Cluster. We are going to cut the head off this snake." The Battle of the Outer Rim lasted for 18 hours. Human forces threw everything they had at the core of the Void Swarm fleet, accepting massive casualties to achieve a single objective: the destruction of the hive mind's command structure. The galactic fleets watched in amazement as human ships continued fighting even after suffering damage that should have forced them to retreat. Human crews kept their weapons operational through sheer determination and tactical improvisation. "They are insane," commented Admiral Vorthon of the Hegemony Fleet. "That human cruiser has lost life support, but they are still firing their weapons." "That is not insanity," replied General Krellmoth, who was serving as liaison between human and galactic forces. "That is why humans are the Iron Bloods of legend. They do not know how to give up." The turning point came when Captain Jang's flagship, the Ghost of Terra, rammed the Void Swarm command vessel after suffering critical damage. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also severed the hive mind's control over half their fleet. "All units, this is Admiral Shin," Hanul announced. "The enemy is blind and confused. Press the attack. Show them why we are called the Iron Bloods." The Void Swarm, for the first time in their expansion across multiple galaxies, experienced something they had never encountered: defeat. Without their hive mind coordination, their adaptive capabilities became useless. Human forces exploited every moment of confusion, turning the tide of the entire war in a single decisive battle. 3 days later, the surviving Void Swarm vessels retreated beyond the galactic rim. Their departure was monitored by human long-range sensors, ensuring that they would not return. Commander Ariam Lim stood in the council chambers as the galaxy's leaders formally welcomed humanity as full members of galactic civilization. The ceremony was broadcast throughout known space, marking the beginning of a new era. "Today, we celebrate not just victory over an external threat," she announced, "but the beginning of a partnership that will make the galaxy stronger." Humans bring something that has been missing from galactic civilization: the willingness to fight for what matters, no matter the cost. In the months that followed, human military academies opened throughout Council space, teaching other species the tactical flexibility and determination that had won the war. Human engineering teams helped rebuild the destroyed systems, bringing technology and methods that had never been seen before. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy learned that the humans were not conquerors or destroyers. They were protectors who fought not for personal gain, but because someone had to stand against the darkness. The Iron Bloods of legend had returned, not as the galaxy's greatest threat, but as its greatest hope. Admiral Shin looked out at the stars from her new office on Council Station, watching human and alien ships working together to patrol the galactic borders. The combat footage that had started this entire chain of events was now being studied in military academies throughout known space. Future generations would learn that sometimes the most dangerous warriors make the best guardians, and that the species most capable of destruction is often the one most dedicated to protection. The humans had found their place in the galaxy at last, not as conquerors, but as the guardians who stood watch against the unknown threats that lurked in the darkness, between the stars.